These 15 games are some of the most unfairly ignored titles out there, and trust me, you'll wish you played them sooner. Starting off at number 15, we have Vampire, an RPG that takes a unique approach to the vampire genre. Developed by Dontnod Entertainment, the same studio behind Life is Strange, this game isn't just about sinking your teeth into enemies, it's about making difficult moral choices. You play as Dr. Jonathan Reed, a newly turned vampire struggling with his thirst for blood while still trying to save lives as a physician. This duality creates an intense internal conflict that makes every decision feel meaningful. The game is set in a hauntingly atmospheric version of 1918 London, a city gripped by the Spanish flu and filled with desperate citizens. Unlike most RPGs where NPCs are just background characters, here every single person has a name, a story, and relationships that can be affected by your actions. Combat in this game is brutal and strategic, with a mix of melee firearms and supernatural vampire abilities. While some found the gameplay a bit clunky, the narrative depth and moral dilemmas more than make up for it. It might not have had the biggest marketing push, but those who gave it a chance discovered one of the most unique vampire games in years. Coming at number 14, Titanfall 2 is the shooter that should have conquered the world but instead got caught in one of the worst release windows imaginable. Dropped right between Battlefield 1 and Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, it was like watching an underdog get thrown into the ring with two giants. And the worst part? Titanfall 2 was arguably better than both. The game didn't just improve on its predecessor, it perfected it. The fluid movement, the exhilarating parkour mechanics, and the seamless transition between pilot combat and mech battles made for an experience unlike any other in that campaign. Easily one of the best single-player shooter stories of the decade. It was the kind of game where you'd start playing and before you knew it, hours had vanished. The missions were incredibly creative, constantly switching things up to keep you engaged. Effect and Cause in particular stands out, a mission that straight up bends your mind with time travel mechanics. One moment you're fighting in the present, the next you're zipping back in time using past structures to navigate areas that no longer exist. The kind of innovation this game brought to the table should have been celebrated, but instead, due to EA's perplexing decision to sandwich its release between two industry juggernauts, Titanfall 2 struggled to make the impact it rightfully deserved. Years later, though, it's found new life thanks to word of mouth and a dedicated fan base that refuses to let it fade into obscurity. If you missed it the first time around, now's your chance to fix that mistake.
Sentinel 3, find the Galahad. Your eyes on him without fail.
Sliding into the 13th spot, we have The Order 1886, a game that was unfairly dismissed upon release, largely due to its short length. But beneath the criticism lies a visually breathtaking and immersive cinematic experience that deserves far more appreciation. Set in an alternate history Victorian London, the game blends steampunk aesthetics with dark fantasy elements, introducing players to a secretive order of knights tasked with battling supernatural threats. From the very first scene, it pulls you into a richly detailed world that feels alive. What really makes The Order 1886 stand out is its impeccable attention to detail. The lighting, character animations, and environmental design are still some of the best in gaming, making every street corner and alleyway feel tangible. The game seamlessly transitions between cutscenes and gameplay, creating a fluid, almost movie-like experience. While the combat may not reinvent the wheel, it features satisfyingly weighty gunplay with unique steampunk weapons that give each encounter a distinct flavor. Unfortunately, its biggest flaw was also its most debated topic, its length. Clocking in at around 6 hours, many felt it was too short for a full-priced game. It may not last long, but its rich atmosphere and compelling storytelling make every moment worthwhile. If you enjoy immersive, narrative-driven experiences with jaw-dropping visuals, The Order 1886 is well worth revisiting. Up next at number 12, we have The Evil Within 2. Now let's be real, the first Evil Within was kind of a mess. It had a cool premise, but it was clunky, weirdly paced, and had a plot that felt like it got lost in a blender. As a result, many people assumed the sequel would suffer from the same flaws, leading them to overlook it entirely. But that was a massive mistake. The Evil Within 2 took everything the first game got wrong and made it clear that this time they were determined to get it right. What we got was a terrifying, emotional, and surprisingly open-ended horror experience that deserved way more love. The game wasn't just scarier, it was smarter. Instead of dragging you down linear hallways, it gave you semi-open environments filled with eerie side stories, lurking monstrosities, and that constant feeling that something is always lurking just behind you. And the story, way more personal. Instead of just Guy trapped in a nightmare world, you're hunting for your lost daughter while being tormented by a city that's literally breaking apart at the seams. So why did no one play it? Well, like I mentioned, the first game left a bad impression, but the bigger issue was timing. It launched right before the holiday season, sandwiched between major releases, and got completely buried. But if you skipped it because of that, you seriously missed out on some of the best horror gaming had to offer. Ranked at number 11, we have Shadow Warrior 3. Alright, let's be real, Shadow Warrior is one of the most overlooked series out there. It's always had a niche following, but when Shadow Warrior 3 dropped, it barely made a dent in the gaming scene. Probably it was bad timing, or maybe bigger FPS titles stole the spotlight, but either way, this adrenaline-fueled, over-the-top shooter didn't get nearly enough love. And honestly, that's a shame, because if you love games that don't take themselves too seriously, this one is an absolute gem. The most exciting aspect of Shadow Warrior 3 is how it blends classic first-person shooter mechanics with insane mobility. Wall running, grappling, and air dashing turn every battle into a high-speed ballet of destruction. The weapons, ridiculously fun. From a razor-sharp katana to explosive firearms that obliterate enemies in the most satisfying ways, the game never lets up. It's not just about mindless action, though. There's a rhythm to the combat, a flow that keeps you hooked as you string together insane combos. But for some reason, it came and went without making a major splash, leaving many players unaware of what they were missing. Even the story, while lighthearted and packed with ridiculous one-liners, offers just enough to keep you invested. Lo Wang's over-the-top personality and hilarious banter make every encounter entertaining. Sure, it might not reinvent the wheel, but sometimes all you need is a game that delivers pure, unfiltered fun. If you're craving fast-paced action, witty humor, and a game that never takes itself too seriously, Shadow Warrior 3 is one you'll wish you played sooner. Breaking into the top 10, we have Quantum Break, an ambitious and criminally overlooked sci-fi action game from Remedy Entertainment. This isn't just another third-person shooter, it's an adrenaline-fueled fusion of cinematic storytelling and mind-bending time manipulation. You step into the shoes of Jack Joyce, a man caught in a chaotic time experiment gone wrong, which grants him the ability to freeze, rewind, and accelerate time itself. The gameplay thrives on these powers, letting you bend reality to your will, dodging bullets in frozen time or dashing behind enemies before they even realize you've moved. It's like Max Payne met Inception, and the result is nothing short of exhilarating. But where Quantum Break truly shines is how it intertwines storytelling with gameplay in a way few games dare to attempt. Every choice you make has consequences, shaping the flow of the story in unexpected ways. Combat flows like a perfectly choreographed storm of devastation, allowing you to freeze enemies in place, dodge bullets in the blink of an eye, and unleash devastating time-powered attacks. The set-piece battles are nothing short of spectacular, transforming firefights into pulse-pounding spectacles that feel like scenes ripped straight from a blockbuster film. And just when you think you have the story figured out, the game throws in twists that keep you hooked until the very end. Unfortunately, Quantum Break never made it to reach mainstream audiences, possibly due to its Xbox exclusivity at launch and the confusion around its mixed media format. But if you're a fan of gripping sci-fi thrillers, jaw-dropping visuals, and gameplay that makes you feel like a time-warping superhero, then it's time to give Quantum Break the attention it always deserved. Coming in at number 9, Ghostwire Tokyo delivers a hauntingly atmospheric supernatural experience unlike anything else in gaming. Set in a beautifully rendered Tokyo overrun by eerie spirits, this first-person action-adventure game combines fast-paced combat with a gripping story. The game's protagonist, Aikido, finds himself bound to a spectral detective named KK, who grants him ethereal abilities to combat the otherworldly threats. This partnership not only makes for intriguing gameplay, but also adds emotional depth to the narrative, narrative. The combat system, which revolves around executing elemental attacks through seamless hand gestures, is both visually stunning and mechanically satisfying. More than just a supernatural action game, Ghostwire Tokyo stands out for its masterful ability to build tension, wandering through abandoned Shibuya streets, encountering faceless spirits, and unraveling eerie mysteries makes the city itself feel like a character. For those who enjoy games that immerse them in a rich, unsettling world, Ghostwire Tokyo is an easy recommendation. The game masterfully balances its fast-paced action with moments of quiet dread, rewarding exploration with hidden lore and unexpected encounters. It may not have made waves upon release, yet those willing to dive in will find themselves obsessed with a mesmerizing world of spectral wonders and enigmatic mysteries. On number 8 is Middle-earth: Shadow of War, a game that took the Nemesis system from its predecessor and cranked it up to an entirely new level. While it initially faced backlash due to its microtransactions, the game was eventually patched to remove them, revealing an absolutely stellar open-world RPG. The dynamic enemy encounters, deep customization, and ever-evolving orc hierarchy made every playthrough feel like a unique experience. Part of what makes Shadow of War so compelling is its ability to make every fight feel personal. One moment you might defeat an orc captain with ease, only to have him return later scarred and hungry for revenge, and with the ability to dominate orcs and build your own army, the game becomes as much about strategy as it is about combat. For fans of both Tolkien's world and open-world action games, Shadow of War is an experience that shouldn't be overlooked. The vast, detailed landscapes of Mordor provide the perfect battleground for intense combat and an engaging story that immerses players in Tolkien's world like never before. It may have launched with controversy, but those who gave it a chance discovered a game far deeper and more rewarding than initial impressions suggested. Next up at number 7 is Shadow of the Tomb Raider, a game that unfairly ended up in the shadows of its predecessors. After the success of Tomb Raider 2013 and Rise of the Tomb Raider, you'd think this third entry would get just as much attention, if not more. Instead, it launched to a mixed reception and quickly faded into the background, which is unfortunate because it's easily the most polished and well-crafted entry in the reboot trilogy. Lara Croft's journey in this installment is darker, more intense, and filled with breathtaking environments that make every moment feel like an adventure waiting to unfold. One of the biggest highlights of this game is its world design. The dense jungles of South America serve as both a breathtaking setting and a dangerous battlefield. Stealth plays a much bigger role here than in the previous games, allowing you to hide in the mud, strike from the shadows, and turn the terrain into your weapon. The tombs, which had been somewhat sidelined in earlier entries, finally take center stage again, offering some of the best puzzles and platforming sequences in the entire series. Even with all these upgrades, the game still didn't get the attention it truly deserved. Like most of the titles on this list, part of the problem might have been timing. It launched in a packed gaming season, making it easy to overlook. But for those who did give it a chance, Shadow of the Tomb Raider delivered a cinematic, action-packed experience with a gripping story that gave Lara's character more depth than ever before. If you passed on this one thinking it was just another typical entry, now's the perfect time to give it a second chance. You might discover it's actually the strongest game in the series. At number 6, we have Immortals Fenyx Rising, a game that might remind you of Breath of the Wild at first glance, but it quickly establishes its own identity. Developed by Ubisoft, this open-world action-adventure brings Greek mythology to life in a way that feels both fresh and engaging. The world is bursting with color, humor, and a surprising amount of charm, offering a lighthearted yet compelling take on the usual gods and monsters narrative. Beyond its striking visual style, the game truly shines in its puzzle design and combat mechanics. The Golden Isles, a land ruled by powerful deities, is filled with vaults that test your wits in creative and rewarding ways. Meanwhile, combat is fast-paced and fluid, with Fenyx gaining divine powers that allow for aerial battles, devastating combos, and unique abilities that keep every encounter exciting. But perhaps the most underrated part of Immortals Fenyx Rising is its storytelling. Unlike many mythological epics that lean heavily on drama, this one injects humor at every turn, with Zeus and Prometheus narrating your adventure in an amusing, bickering fashion. It's a game that never takes itself too seriously, yet still manages to deliver an emotional and satisfying journey. Taking the 5th spot, Greedfall stands as one of the most overlooked RPGs to date. Released in 2019 by Spiders, a relatively small studio, it was easy to overlook amidst the bigger budget RPGs of the time. But here's the thing. Greedfall is exactly what fans of classic BioWare-style RPGs had been craving. It had deep role-playing elements, a rich and politically complex story, and choices that actually mattered. You weren't just another generic hero, you were a diplomat, a warrior, a rogue, or whatever you wanted to be, navigating a world teeming with mystery, colonial tension, and ancient magic. More than just its captivating RPG mechanics, Greedfall excelled at creating an immersive world that felt alive. It was a world brimming with culture, conflict, and the choices you made weren't just about good and evil. They shaped your relationships with different factions, affecting the world in subtle but impactful ways. It's hard to say why, but even with everything going for it, Greedfall never quite got the respect it deserved. Maybe it was the lack of big-name marketing, or maybe it was the perception that it was AA instead of AAA, but for those who actually played it, Greedfall was a hidden gem that felt like a love letter to RPG fans. And if you haven't played it yet, well, what are you waiting for? Ranked at number 4, Ghost Recon Wildlands stands as one of Ubisoft's most ambitious open-world shooters, yet it never received the recognition it rightfully earned. Unlike traditional military shooters, this one throws you into a massive, living, breathing version of Bolivia, where you and your squad are tasked with dismantling a ruthless drug cartel. The sheer scale of the world is jaw-dropping. What truly makes Wildlands unique is the sheer freedom it offers and how you approach each objective. Missions can be tackled in countless ways, like go in loud with heavy firepower, sneak through undetected, or use vehicles and drones to cause distractions. The game is at its absolute best when played in multiplayer, but even if you prefer solo play, the AI squad mates do a decent job of executing your commands, making for an enjoyable experience regardless of how you choose to play. Despite its strengths, Ghost Recon Wildlands was somewhat overshadowed by its sequel, Breakpoint, which unfortunately didn't capture the same magic, but looking back, Wildlands remains a hidden gem, offering an unparalleled blend of tactical gameplay and open-world exploration. Claiming the 3rd spot on our list is Far Cry Primal. The Far Cry franchise has long been synonymous with massive open worlds, explosive action, and unforgettable villains, so when Far Cry Primal arrived, it was a complete curveball that no one saw coming. Instead of modern-day warfare, you're thrown into the Stone Age, where you play as Takar, a hunter trying to unite his tribe. There's no high-tech warfare, no flashy modern weapons, and no insane explosions. Instead, you're focused on the basics: survival, hunting, and building up your tribe, but that's exactly what makes it worth playing. You'll be hunting with spears, taming animals, and fighting rival tribes in a way that's strangely satisfying. The game's world is beautiful, rich with wildlife and detailed environments that immerse you in prehistoric life. Sure, it's a bit slower than its predecessors, but the focus on survival, strategy, and primitive combat makes it unique. The ability to tame animals and have them fight alongside you adds a layer of depth to the gameplay that makes it a blast to play, even though it may not have garnered the attention it deserved at release.
Yep. Someone get over here! Right there you are!
Our runner-up at number 2 is Dishonored. When this game was first released, it garnered critical acclaim for its innovative gameplay and beautiful design, but somehow, upon release, it never really reached the level of mainstream success it had projected. The game lets you play as Corvo Attano, a bodyguard who's framed for the murder of the Empress and must navigate through a dark, steampunk world full of conspiracy and betrayal. What sets Dishonored apart from other stealth action games is its incredible freedom. You can play the game in so many different ways, whether that's sneaking around and using your powers to avoid combat or just going in guns blazing. The levels are designed in such a way that they encourage exploration and creativity. The story is compelling, and the way it tackles themes of power, revenge, and corruption is expertly handled. Even with all its brilliance, this game never became the blockbuster hit it earned to be, mainly because it was overshadowed by bigger titles at the time. Looking back, Dishonored is the kind of game that rewards you for being creative and thinking outside the box. It might not have been the most popular game of its time, but its legacy lives on as one of the best designed stealth action games out there. Finally, at number 1 on our list is Mad Max, a game that had all the right ingredients for success yet never quite reached the level of fame it should have. Released in 2015, Mad Max had a lot going for it. Stunning visuals, a vast open world, and chaotic high-speed combat, but somehow it didn't get the attention it truly deserved. Set in the unforgiving wasteland of a post-apocalyptic world, you play as Max, a rugged survivor trying to navigate a land ravaged by ruthless gangs and limited resources. The concept is as gritty as it sounds, but the execution, absolutely thrilling. You'll find yourself driving through vast deserts and navigating crumbling, dangerous cities, all while upgrading your vehicle and fighting for survival. The vehicular combat is especially fun, but it's not just about driving. When you're on foot, the combat becomes brutal, with Max throwing punches, using melee weapons, and dispatching enemies in ways that feel rewarding with each fight. Mad Max might not have been an overnight success, but it didn't take long for players to realize what a sleeper hit it truly was. With its adrenaline-fueled vehicular combat and harsh yet stunning wasteland, it carved out a place in gaming that few other titles have matched. If you never gave it a shot back then, now's the ideal time to see what makes this wasteland adventure so unforgettable.